Bonjour everyone! So we're still working from home unfortunately. I'm not sure what's going to happen after Easter, but I'm hoping, beyond hope, that we're in college a lot more often, and so we're going to be able to do a lot more practical work. Today we're going to be doing some drawing from home, thinking about preparing for our next in-college session. So we're going to be producing sketches that we can use in the heat press transfer technique when you're in college, and we can start to layer with the other images that you've produced, so the photographs that you gathered together, the emulsion print technique, the stitch work, and we can start to put those together to build interesting talismans. So hopefully we've already done our warm-up, where we've thought about an image not just being a realistic representation of an object, but about telling a story, about having some interest, some character. Hopefully that's what we've produced. So let's skip that, we've done that bit. So we're going to focus today on Cecile Perrer as our key artist, because she has layered photographic images, line work, stitch work, and she's put those together in images to tell a story. And so each of the images themselves might feel quite naive, quite childlike, but when they're put together as a collection of images on one page, they start to tell a story, something that she might want to be saying about her identity, about her memories, about past experiences. And so the naive, childlike quality can start to hint at our experiences and how we've become who we are. And so that's why it's really today about trying to tell a story with our images and not worrying if our images are perfect or accurate. It's about getting something down on paper. So if you can look on Cecile Perrer's images, this central image that I've got my cursor on now, she's got an orange kind of human-like figure connected to the girl with some string. It almost looks like a balloon person. And there's that idea that the image could be telling something about her past, it could be about some kind of connection, it could be an image of herself and she feels disconnected, it could just be a random piece of string that's going over hands. It looks very much like it's tied on to me because it's wrapped around twice. And so I'm starting already to read into this image and try and understand it and figure out what that might mean. A large part of what you're going to be doing today while it's drawing is about trying to think about objects and images that can start to create a story about your identity and start to communicate it. And that if somebody had all of those images in front of them, they would want to start to question, so I wonder if this is about this part of their identity, I wonder if they're trying to tell us something about this. And so it's really about us trying to put a story together. So our first task before we start drawing is to think about what we want to draw about, what stories we want to tell. And so you need to revisit your response to mapping yourself that we did a few weeks ago, where we had a massive list of all the features of identity that we could think of, and we started to individually focus on the ones that felt important to us. We produced quite a large summary. It was quite a few paragraphs where you thought about your identity. And now I want you to take that and summarise one aspect, because there might have been multiple things that you put in there, but I'd like you now to drill down and focus on one thing and summarise it into one sentence. So I've given you an example here of something to do with Irishness that I might think about. Once you've got your sentence, we need to think about the kinds of objects that relate to that, or that communicate something about it, or that represent the sentence. And so again, I've put an example here of the kind of objects that I might link to Irishness for me. Ideally, if you have a look in bold here, I'll highlight it just to make sure you can see it. Ideally, these things should be primary objects, things that you've got access to. It's really hard to be free with your drawing when we're drawing from a secondary object. We can't see it in its entirety usually. We can't see the whole 3 dimensions of the object, and it's flat, it's like tracing, it's like copying. And so we need an object in front of us to really free ourselves. So that's our main task, and makes it a bit harder really to mind map, because it's easy to find secondary images that relate. Finding actual personal objects that you have in your house is harder to do, but makes it more personal, and that's the whole point of doing it. Okay? So then once we've got our mind map, we need to start doing the drawing. And I've got here a series. So we're not just producing one beautiful, perfect line work sketch. We're producing a series of line sketches probably quite quickly so that we've got a bank of them, a body of them to work from, so that when we come into college we can lay them out and think about what we've got and think about which things might work. We're giving ourselves options. We're giving ourselves almost chapters in our story, and we can pick the ones that are going to be right to put on the front cover, to put on our main image that we create. So I've got some bullet points here of things to think about if you're feeling stuck. Think about different sections or parts of the object. Maybe drawing the whole object is not working. Maybe there's too much detail. Maybe having just parts of it is enough. Simplifying the forms is another great one. Sometimes we've got an object which is quite busy and we need to simplify that down. If we have a look at Cecile Perra's images, they're all simplified down into basic shapes and forms. The details that are there are really purposeful, and so she's not just thrown every detail in. She's put the feet on this dove, she's put some texture on it. These are really simplified but interesting aspects of this object for her. So don't just draw everything, draw what feels interesting and relevant for you. Think about texture and detail. Is it necessary? Do you need to put the texture on the object for it to represent the object, or does the texture not really add anything to it? Try not to be too realistic. Try to give a sense of the object, a sense of what it means to you, a sense of what it represents. If your image is too tight, so if your sketches are all feeling a bit perfect or small or twee, try and loosen it up. Go back to the continuous line that we tried this morning. Obviously look at your paper this time. We didn't do that in your warm-up, but try and loosen it up. Try and free up what you're putting down on the paper. Sometimes when we do things with our eyes closed or with our left hand instead of our right hand, our non-dominant hand, it frees up the image and we create something that we wouldn't normally have created. And so try those techniques if you're feeling like it's all a bit tight and not really feeling great. And then lastly, does it tell the story that you want it to? If not, maybe make a few notes. Think about the story that you do want to tell. If it wasn't really clear in your sentence, you could rewrite your sentence, clear up what you actually want to articulate, and then give it another whirl. Because we need to keep everything that we do. So it's really important that you keep all of the work that you've done so far together. If you haven't already, put it together, but if you have, add all of this work to it, because all of the work that we've done each week is showing our process. It's showing how we've thought as artists and how we've worked through the process of exploring our own identity and coming up with a theme and exploring different art and craft techniques. And so it's really important we gather all of this together so that we've got it as evidence for grades. Next week we're going to use the heat press and we're going to play around with loads of different techniques on there. We've got loads of resist techniques, loads of direct transfer techniques, things that incorporate different materials. It's a really, really fun, quick, exciting process, and so we're going to need the images that you produce today to use for that. So make sure that they're finished and brought in for next week.